Hi everyone, Clara is here again. Welcome to Difference Frames the World, a demonetized channel to say the world differently. Today we talk about a hot topic about Alaska. On August 28, 2022, two grandfather-class U.S. warships crossed the Taiwan Strait, which urged some media in the United States to speculate whether Chinese warships would also go to Alaska to show off their muscles. On the 30th, three Chinese warships crossed the Tsushima Strait. They reached the Sea of Japan to conduct military exercises with Russia, in which India also participated, making the United States very uncomfortable. So we will discuss whether Chinese warships can go to Alaska or not. First of all, let's see where Alaska is. Last year, we talked about Alaska in a video when China's Tiger Ying met Antony Blinken for the first time in Anchorage in March 2021, in which we mentioned that the US bought Alaska from the Russian Empire. Now look at the screen's top right corner for the place. Although it is in the United States, Alaska and Russia are very close. If we look at the map carefully, we can see Russia and Alaska are closer to each other than China's mainland and Taiwan. A legend said when ancient China's Shang dynasty was overthrown several thousand years ago, the people of that time, who refused to succumb to the conquerors, are said to have passed through the frozen Bering Strait and arrived on the American continent. The American media is very nervous about Alaska for two reasons. The first is Russia, where some people have said publicly if the United States continues to bully Russia, Moscow should consider revoking the Alaska Treaty and taking back Alaska. Although it is least likely, some media want to scare their audiences and attract their eyeballs, thus exciting the narrative. The other reason is China. On August 28, 2022, USS Antietam and USS Chancellorsville, which we cannot call broken ships but old boats, sailed through the Taiwan Strait. They're grandfather-level old ships, flexing their wrinkles, not muscles, in the Taiwan Strait, which China does not recognize as international waters. First, let's talk about whether foreign ships can transit the Taiwan Strait. In the middle of the Taiwan Strait, there is a waterway for ships from other countries to pass innocently. Warships can pass through the waterway as long as it is a harmless passage or, as the American media guys prefer, an innocent passage. What is a harmless passage, then? A harmless passage means the warship cannot land or take off aircraft, not attack the hosting country, posing no threat to that country's military and territorial security. Those two ships passing through the Taiwan Strait, two Grandpa-class destroyers, behaved very well when transiting the waterway. They kept the plugs at the mouths of their guns instead of taking them off, and they did not point their guns in the direction of China's mainland or Taiwan. So instead of showing their muscles, those antiquated warships were conveying the friendship of the American people to the Chinese people, even though no one had invited them to do so. The US military was so lovely, and the US government was so friendly, then why are American media still worried? As a freelancer social media guy, one can tease the US military or government, but for China, those two warships, even if they are to be scrapped tomorrow as scrap metal, still provoke China. Such a move provoked China, and the American media felt that America was still something in the Taiwan Strait. Like in a Hollywood movie, two aging or aged supermen, wearing rusty shorts outside their wrinkled skin, came to the rescue 3 weeks after imaginary monsters ruined the island. In the past, the US would only send one ship. This time, however, it sent two ships, which is strange. Why did they send two ships? Those two ships are already the grandfather and grandmother class, not much younger than US House Speaker Nancy Pelosi or the incumbent US President Joe Biden. They are two old boys, not fit for boxing anymore. If only one of them went and fell, it would be permanently over. So, it is necessary to have another ship that can use a rope to pull the broken one away, a free tow away, as there is no need to call a Chinese salvage ship or Chinese crane to help remove it. Chinese salvage ships helped uncover two F-35 fighters out of the water, which is more than enough. Let's put it this way. Although the American media thought those two ships sailed through the Taiwan Strait without harm, they thought the US government or the US military was still adamant and potent, expressing support for Taiwan. So they are worried about countermeasures from China's mainland. What will Beijing do to retaliate? The Western media cannot find other options than follow America's suit. Like the Americans, the Chinese warships could flex their muscles at the doorstep of the United States. China may not go to Florida, which is too far away, but they can go to Alaska. Alaska, yes, it is not that far anyway. After the 2022 military exercise hosted by Russia, China can go there to take a stroll. Anyhow, it does not burn much oil. In 2015, the Chinese warships had already gone to Alaska, across their so-called territorial waters, to make an innocent passage. Here is a report from Voice of America at that time about that innocent passage. It's a harmless passage. And it was passing through U.S. territorial waters off Alaska. What does that mean? It shows that Chinese warships could go there in 2015. Why can't they go in 2022? This time, the Chinese side welcomed those two grandfather-class boats, with 23 aircraft and 8 warships, when they made innocent passages to protect their freedom of navigation, a stately escort across the Taiwan Strait. So, if China sends the Type 055, 052D, 054A destroyers or even Type 075 to cruise Alaska, the U.S. is more than welcome to send dozens of ships, or hundreds of them, as cheerleaders. Now, let's talk about an event in Japan on August 30, 2022. Japan's media reported that the Japanese Defense Department found 3 Chinese warships passing through the Tsushima Strait and reaching the Sea of Japan on the way to Russia. India and other countries are also invited to join the 2022 military exercises. Where is the place for the 2022 military exercise? As you can see on the screen, the strait is in the middle of South Korea and the Japanese archipelago. It's called the Tsushima Strait. The Chinese ships sailed through the strait, continued northward, and reached the area. China, Russia, India, and several other countries participate in the military exercises there. Many media guys regard it as a demonstration by China against 2 U.S. warships crossing the Taiwan Strait. It was not. China, Russia, India, and some other countries do not start the military exercises in 2022. Russia sponsored it last year. India went there too. China sends a Type 055 destroyer with a displacement of 13,000 tons. Another destroyer that follows the Type 055 is 054A. And Type 903 is a supply ship. So, it is like a Chinese formation to participate in this Russian-hosted military exercises. It's not a big deal for China, and it is not a big deal for Japan either. Japan does not need to read too much into it. In the past century, it sent many troops to China, burning, looting, and killing millions of Chinese people. Still, it refuses to admit its atrocities. China only sent 3 ships through the Tsushima Strait, a little closer to the Japanese islands this time. It's not a big deal, indeed. However, it is a severe warning to Japan. Japan must not confront China in the Taiwan Strait at this sensitive time. When China held the military exercise to lock down Taiwan, it launched 11 missiles, 2 of which flew in the direction of Japan, allegedly hitting Japan's so-called exclusive economic zone, which China has never recognized. The U.S. said they found 9 of those missiles cross the sky above Taiwan. Taiwan's radar failed to detect them, and the Taiwan defense had no idea what was happening. Only after Japan and the U.S. revealed the information did they admit that those missiles were too high for the people of Taiwan to worry about. They didn't have any effect on the people of Taiwan. Because it was so high, people on the island couldn't see those missiles, which is why there was no notification. What did the 9 missiles hit? They hit the targets in the eastern part of Taiwan. During Pelosi's visit to Taiwan, at midnight on August 2, 2022, USS Ronald Reagan, the aircraft carrier deployed in the 7th Fleet, was eager to protect Nancy Pelosi. When China announced it would use the eastern part of Taiwan as the airsoft shooting range, USS Reagan immediately backed up 500 kilometers. It kept itself safe from the Chinese missiles, more than 1,000 kilometers from the Chinese coastline. Why? It's because of the Chinese missiles. China's current missiles ranges are generally around 1,000 kilometers, like the 17 anti-ship missiles, which is more than enough during the military exercises in Taiwan. There is no need to use DF-41, with a range of more than 10,000 kilometers, capable of hitting every corner of the world when locking down the renegade island less than 200 kilometers from the mainland. The aircraft carrier has an anti-strike range of only about 600 kilometers, and it is difficult to avoid attacks from 1,000 kilometers away. Why did the US send those two ships to transit the Taiwan Strait? It's because they're going to be scrapped anyway. If China attacked and sunk them, the US could save money by not scrapping them. As we mentioned earlier, the situation in Asia is complicated, like playing a poker game. Today VOA reported that China, India, and Russia held a joint military exercise. Actually, in 2021, India has already participated in the joint exercise hosted by Russia. India and Russia are pretty close. India is a country with no alliance, and what does its policy of no alliance mean? What is it? It means it can leverage whichever side and take advantage of it. It said nothing about Russia's military action in Ukraine, and did not condemn Russia. It continues buying oil from Russia at low prices and selling it to other countries, including the United States, at higher prices. In the Taiwan Strait crisis, India does not take a position either. It has not condemned China. This time, it joined hands with China and Russia, conducting joint military exercises, making the United States very depressed. The United States planned to entangle some countries on the India and China border, less than 100 kilometers from the Chinese side, to conduct joint military exercises to give China a taste of its own medicine, as if China had threatened India as a bully. The US is upset, as it does not understand why India wants to join hands with China and Russia to conduct military exercises. Modi, what are you doing here? The United States is very depressed indeed. In the Taiwan Strait and other parts of Asia, the influence of the United States is constantly declining, which is why it sent two broken ships to transit the Taiwan Strait. The 7th Fleet has good ships, but why don't they send them? China's rocket force is estimated to have over 5,000 Dongfeng missiles, the first in the world. With the first island chain, Western countries can no longer prevent China from entering the Pacific Ocean. The first island chain is from Vietnam, Brunei, the Philippines, Taiwan Province of China, Japan, and South Korea, aiming to lock China. With the launch of China's third aircraft carrier, in addition to two aircraft carriers that have already formed a combat capability, the fourth and fifth ones are assumably under construction, putting China in a favorable situation, so it is unlikely that the West will be able to lock up China again. No wonder the 1945 website published an article appealing to control the first island chain. The question is, how can they control it? The first island chain cannot stop China anymore. If China wants to go out, it goes out. It can go out at any time. In the past, when China conducted military exercises, it had never done anything in the Pacific Ocean to the east of Taiwan. There were no military operations in those days. When Pelosi visited Taiwan, she landed in Taiwan from the eastern side. How did her planes fly to Taiwan that night? It made a big circle from the east, sneaking into Taiwan. The new rounds of China's military exercises in Taiwan broke all constraints. Beijing's warplanes patrol Taiwan from all directions regularly. Aircraft carrier Reagan was forced away and returned to Japan, showing that the United States had lost control of the first island chain. It's not just that. Now the United States has pushed Japan to the frontier facing China. Where did the United States go? It went to Hawaii, as far away from China's missiles as possible. U.S. military power has declined dramatically, and because of the decline of the U.S. military power, it can't clamp down on China in the Western Pacific. Many of its allies, such as South Korea and Australia, are starting to go in the direction of China. In this region, there is another nation, Indonesia, which has a closer relationship with Beijing. The world recognizes strength, and one must be wealthy and robust to earn other nations' respect. The U.S. side is not organizing a new aid alliance to loot China, not because Western powers have become better. Not at all. What is the real reason they did not invade China? It's because China has become more assertive. Now let's examine why the American media are uneasy about Alaska. You can see it from here. That's the Bering Strait. As we said earlier, ancient Chinese people went all the way from that strait to arrive on the North American continent, and then they went south, reaching where Canada, the US and Mexico are. If we go to Mexico and meet local people there, we can find their skin color is very similar to the Chinese. And if we ask the Mexican locals, some of their customs, even some people's family names, also have some similarities with the Chinese. American scholars have discovered many ancient Chinese scripts and ancient Chinese writing in the States. What does this tell us? It shows that Asians, not necessarily Chinese, could have discovered the American continent hundreds of years, if not thousands of years before Columbus. Asian hate has been widespread in the States, and those racists should know that the prehistoric owners of the continent should have come from Asia thousands of years ago, not their ancestors, who had killed millions of natives in the past centuries. Let us go back to the question, why are American media so nervous about Alaska? Alaska is too close to Russia, forcing them to think it's easy for Russia to take it back. The US is far from Alaska. Even if the United States sends troops to Alaska, it's tough to defend that place. The West may not worry about Chinese taking Alaska, but the close relations between Beijing and Moscow make them cry all day. Will the Chinese warships go to Alaska or not? It's not necessary. Why would they go there? US warships could span the Pacific Ocean to transit the Taiwan Strait. Then, China must patrol America's waters like Alaska, Florida, California, etc. Are they crazy? That would be a mess. China doesn't need global dominance. China doesn't need to go to the United States to show off its muscles. What does China want to do? It just wants to mind its own business, to defend its land and people. China's army did not have good weapons in the Korean War, and Chinese soldiers didn't even have cotton clothes and enough food, but they were able to force the UN army back to the 38th parallel. China now has rockets, intercontinental missiles, aircraft carriers, and fifth-generation stealth fighters. Is China afraid of the United States? The US cannot defeat China at China's doorstep unless it starts a nuclear war, mutually assured destruction for all humanity. For now, the United States has the capability and can bomb China back to the Stone Age. China agrees that the US can bomb it back to primitive society 100 times, but it can guarantee that Beijing can bring the US back to primitive society at least once. The US will let China die 100 times, but China only needs to let America die once. Still, one thing is guaranteed. During the First World War, there was no war on America's mainland, and the same was true during the Second World War. But during the Third World War, America's homeland will no longer be safe. The war is going to burn America's soil. Only when the US and China carefully maintain a balance between them will the world be safe, otherwise, there is no way to achieve peace.